time for Cigar Talk, the fastest growing cigar show in the nation. Whether you're a new cigar enthusiast or a cigar aficionado, we have something for everyone, bringing you the best interviews, cigar reviews, and weekly giveaways. So grab yourself a cigar.
It's time to light 'em up.
Hey, welcome back to Cigar Talk. I'm your host, Rob Jones. We have co-host with us today in the studio, Bryant Falconer. How you doing today, Bryant?
Hey, man, I'm doing good,
Awesome, man. So let's go ahead and get started with the show and talk about what we're smoking. I'm going to let you go first.
Hey, man, I'm smoking a Deadwood Crazy Alice today.
And, of course, I've never had one of those. It's a really peculiar-looking cigar.
Yeah, it's cone-shaped, but the thing about this that I love, it's a oily Connecticut leaf on it. And it's like, it has a taste of cocoa or like a chocolate. But, man, it doesn't overpower those the mocha and that spice to it. I mean, man, she's cone-shaped, but don't let this lady fool you. She's here to please,
Well,
brother.
it's also short.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what's that, about a 3.5,
3.5,
4 inch?
yeah. But I'm telling you, it's worth it.
And if you guys haven't seen one, it's like on the foot where you light it, it's probably about a 50 ring gauge.
Yes, 50 ring
and then the top where you're actually puffing on it, I mean, that looks like probably like a 44, 46.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
sir.
it's pretty small.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm thinking I'd smoke one of those in about 15 minutes.
Nah. You give me about another 15 minutes to that.
30
about 30
minutes?
Yeah, to give you 30 minutes to me, 45, almost an hour.
All right, I got you.
Because the beauty of it, man, it's a smooth smoke. It's cool. It's crisp. It's something, like I tell you, it's not overpowering, and this lady's here to please, bro.
But you don't think it'd be probably my type?
No, not you.
All right,
But
that's
for
cool.
me, a cool smoker is perfect.
I got you. Because he thinks he's cool.
Oh, I am.
So anyway, I'm smoking the Alpha cigar, the Maduro infused with absinthe. And I tell you what, this has become one of my favorite cigars. I was told people in the past it was really a surprise, but the more I smoke it, the more I like it.
Yes.
And,
yes.
you know, and I was talking to someone the other day about, I think it was Jay at the Leaf.
Okay.
And, you know, when I first started smoking cigars, and I think a lot of people do this, they start smoking and then they find one that they like. And then that's it. They're not trying anything new because they found the cigar that they think is perfect for them. And, you know, before we started doing this show, that's how I was. I had like 3 or 4 go-to cigars, and that's all I smoked.
Okay.
And now, I mean, you know, I smoke
everything.
I'll smoke anything once except for a Trader Jack. But anyway, if you haven't smelled the Trader Jacks,
You'll understand
man.
why. You'll understand.
Yeah, it'll make you sick. I mean, it's just a $2 stick. So, I mean.
You understand.
Yeah. But anyway, speaking of this Alpha cigar, I've been just really impressed with them. The constructions have been fantastic. I've bragged about that before. But the actual infused Maduro, man, I'm telling you, it's come a long ways for me.
Sir.
You know, I
Yes,
was just like, wow.
The first time I smoked one, I was like, okay, this is good, because the absinthe is not overpowering.
Right.
It's just, it's there. You know it's there. You can taste it, but you get to taste the rest of the cigar.
And the thing
rest
about
of
it
the
is,
leaves.
on the finished third,
Oh, yes.
that last third, it comes on not the absinthe, but it has a good punch
Yes,
to it.
sir.
And, you know, I like a medium to full, and I would say this is probably a little bit more than medium. But that last third comes on and kind of hits you in the face and go, hey, man, don't forget you're smoking me.
It makes you thankful that you had it. Yes,
Right.
sir.
So, and as long as I'm speaking of Alpha Cigars, that's one of our sponsors, and we appreciate them being a sponsor and believing in us and liking the show. And so we just want to give all the love back to them. And if you haven't tried them, go out and smoke one. Shoot me a message and let me know what you think. And I want you to go in with it open-minded, because whenever I went in, I was not open-minded.
Yes.
So anyway, as long as we're talking about sponsors, let's talk about our other one, which is Hiram and Solomon.
Bring them on.
And you were smoking one today that I haven't had. Tell us about that one.
Grand Architect.
And how was that? I haven't had one yet.
That was a smooth stick that it lets you know, just like you said, it lets you know, hey, I'm smoking this stick, I'm here. But it has a taste all the way through. That last third was a power pack. it hit me with some things. I actually had to put it down for a second and sit back. I was like, okay, yeah, you one of them.
Because when
you one of them.
Hey, when I asked you about it earlier,
Yeah.
you said you got a buzz off of it.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, so
Brand architect.
I'm going to smoke one of those tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know we actually carried those at the shop,
Yes,
or I
sir.
would have already had one.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, hey, and also we want to give a shout out to San Diego Jack.
Junior,
man. We got a big surprise earlier
sir.
this evening. We were at the Leaf, as always, and we had a listener come by, and he's in town this week, and we got to hang out with him and smoke cigars, and man, it was great hanging out with somebody from somewhere else in the country. He's from California, and we just hung out and smoked and talked about cigars and coffee and life and what he does for a living, and I mean, it was just really good to get to know somebody like that.
It was,
Andy's cooking tonight.
Yes,
and
Andy's
we're going to
promised
go
to
back
bring,
tomorrow.
yes.
All right. So we always love anybody who's going to feed us.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get to this week. We're going to be introducing the co-host, and I know he's been on the show. You've heard him, but we don't really know much about him.
Yes.
So I thought, when I say we, I mean y'all, because I know too much about him.
Stop
But
that.
anyway, I thought we'd take this time to let you guys get to know Bryant a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and basically do an interview with Bryant, and I'll probably throw him under the bus a couple of times. But
I can believe it.
you know, it's like Ed says, do your arms ever get tired? So anyway, you grew up in East St. Louis.
Yes, sir. East St. Louis, Illinois.
Now, is that where you were born?
Yeah, born and raised.
Born and
man.
raised.
Born and raised.
And you went to school there?
Yeah,
you,
Lincoln Senior High.
Lincoln Senior High. And then you also played sports there.
Yes, sir.
You were a football player?
Football player. Yes,
Basketball?
No, because our basketball team was too powerful. My skills did not equate to being even on the fourth string for Lincoln High School basketball.
Hey, let me tell you something. I tried out for the basketball team. And after tryouts, man, I was feeling pretty good, you know.
hear you.
And the coach said, "Hey, Rob, you made the wrestling team." So that's what happened. I was thinking, man, I'm going to play me some basketball.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, I'm wrestling. And I'll tell you what, though, I was so happy afterwards because I loved wrestling.
Okay.
Man, did you ever do any wrestling
Yes,
in high
I
school?
did.
That's
I
a
did.
tough
It's
sport.
a tough sport.
And stamina.
It's stamina and dedication.
Yeah.
Because you have to be dedicated to wrestle in high school.
Man.
There's nothing that, even comes close to it. I played football since I was in junior high school.
Dude, and let me tell you, when you're on the football field,
Yeah.
you get a breather.
Not
when
when
you're wrestling, there
you
is-
take a breather,
Oh,
you're on the ground, you're on
right.
the mat.
You're on the mat,
Yes,
back
sir.
down.
Yes, sir.
So-
Lincoln was known for basketball and track. So I actually practiced with the track team in the off season. I practiced because I was fast, but I was nowhere near that fast.
Right.
So it kept me in shape for football.
Let me tell you this. In the it wasn't off season for me. I didn't have a choice. I was on the track team,
Oh.
and I ran the quarter mile.
Bruh. No, I'm
That's
not
the
gonna
worst one.
Yeah, 'cause
I hated the quarter mile
that
because
horse get
it's
on
a
your back.
sprint.
Oh, yes.
So what was crazy, though, was I wasn't good enough to go to the meets.
But you were good enough to practice.
Yeah. So, and let me tell you something. I was the only white guy on the quarter mile team. So I'm running, and I remember my best time ever, which is a 51.3.
Okay.
For a white
But
guy,
that's-
that's not bad. But my brothers on the team were running 49s, 48s. And I mean, dude, when you're running the quarter mile, someone's beating you by 3.5 seconds, they're way up
ahead.
there.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
I hated running, and the coach just did it because, back then I played football and they wanted me to stay in shape.
yeah.
And I was like, man, is
Yeah,
there
that's-
not something else I could do to stay in shape?
That's how I got
hated
talked
running.
into practicing with the track squad because Mr. Marshall, who was our disciplinarian at the school, but also the boys' head track coach, he came to me my sophomore year and he told me, he said, "Faulkner, you running track?" I was like, "No, I'm not." He said, "Oh, yes, you are." He said, "But you're doing it to stay in shape." And Mr. Marshall looked like the black version of the Kingpin. Seriously.
Yeah, right.
He was a huge, tall man with a bald head. And when he talked, you listened and you did whatever he said.
Oh,
there was
yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. he said you did it, you did it.
Yeah, and back when we grew up, it was either licks or
Yes, sir.
running.
Yes, sir. And
or sometimes both.
both of them.
It's like, you go run 20 laps and then meet me in my office.
Meet me in the office.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and it was
sir.
like, man, by the time you got done running all those laps, you were so exhausted, you were just happy to go get licks. So,
yeah, and only time I left East St. Louis was to go to college. I went to play football.
Where'd you go?
I went to my first year. I went to Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee. It was HBCU.
Tennessee?
Yeah.
I didn't know you went down there.
Yeah, I was down there for a year. It didn't pan out the way I thought it would. So I came back home my sophomore year and went to SIU Carbondale.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I realized mentally I wasn't ready for college. I wasn't trying to be a pre-med student and play football, and then having this new freedom.
Well, and I'll tell you this,
for
dude,
me.
I don't know how it was where you went to school, but there was no preparation for college.
And see, the issue is I should have stayed at Lane because the year I went to Carbondale, they had just got voted by Rolling Stone magazine as the party school of the nation.
Nice.
And
you participated.
Oh, my goodness. Come on now.
You know, I went to Texas Tech.
Okay.
And
Red
Raider, guns up, baby. So anyway, I went to Texas Tech, and, you know, for like the first 3 weeks, every day I'm going to my classes, checking it out. And then one day I was going to go by the UC and get a snack.
Okay.
And when I went in for the UC, I go in there, and all these other college students hanging out, joking around, eating, drinking sodas, and that's where all the girls were.
So that's where you gravitated to.
I never went to class after that. I go to the UC. I'd go to my first class, go to the UC, and then I wouldn't make any other class the rest of the day. And I remember I was at the UC for like 3-4 days in a row instead of going to my political science class. I show up to my political science class one week, and they're like, pull out your 682 sheet and a number 2 pencil. We're having a test today. And I was like, I don't know nothing about a test. And so
I like how you said I showed up 1 week.
Right. Well, I showed up, and so I don't even have the test sheet.
Oh,
you have to bring your own test sheet.
Oh, so you were really...
So I hauled ass across Texas Tech campus, which is huge, to the library. I buy a book of test sheets. I haul ass back.
Test over?
No. This was a major test.
Okay.
So I sit down. I don't have a number 2 pencil. You know what I did?
What?
I got up and walked out.
Yeah, I just said done with it.
I'm done with it. And so then, like, the next week, I run into the professor, and I'm like, hey, my uncle died, and I wasn't able to take the test last week. And you know what she says?
What was that?
Bring me proof.
Yeah.
And I was like,
with proof, I'll let you take it again.
Hey, so then I went straight to the admin, and I dropped the class.
That class, yeah.
What I should have done with the other classes, too, because I just quit going. So I'm not a college graduate, guys. You know what? 90% of getting a degree is showing up. So anyway, so what'd you do after you got out of college?
So I came back home and made a decision that I needed to do something. I went down to the recruiting office and signed up with the United States Army.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I went to the Army as a medic, a 91 Bravo. At that time, the MOS has changed. And I was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington for 3 years. Met my ex-wife there. Her father was a first sergeant. So
was he your sergeant?
No.
Oh, I was like, you don't date your sergeant's daughter.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
I was
that's
trying
a bad
to be
idea.
I was trying to be political, but I met my ex-wife. Her father was a first sergeant. He actually retired right after we got together, and I learned a lot of things. And the Army was perfect for me because
made you grow up.
Oh, most definitely. Because coming from East St. Louis. If you go into any branch of the military and they ask you where you're from, you say East St. Louis, everybody looks at you a different way.
Yeah.
Because East St. Louis has a reputation.
Well, yeah, and it's not just military. No. Anywhere you go, when you say you're from East St. Louis, people are like, dang. Yes.
And what it gave me was discipline, and it helped me understand what true loyalty was. Yeah. You know, when you have a person dependent on, their life is dependent upon you doing your job, that was the perfect opportunity for me to grow. And it gave me an understanding of who and what I wanted to be as a man. I got out. I came back home to East St. Louis. Started, like I said, I had a wife at this time, so I had to do some things that made sure that she was taken care of.
Right.
I started working on the railroad.
So well, let's back up a minute. Because I know this already, I want to make sure everybody else knows. While you were in the military, what happened? You started smoking cigars.
Yes.
I don't want to leave that out.
I got introduced to the Monte Cristo. There were 3 sergeants that I hung out with: Staff Sergeant Pearson, Sergeant Warren, Sergeant Vaughn, and Specialist Singletary. These gentlemen introduced me to the Monte Cristo and smoking cigars, and I was hooked ever since. And that was in 1992.
Nice. So you've been smoking cigars for like 27 years. Wow.
Yes. And they introduced that community to me, to be the ability to come together. And we also played football together because I played on the post football team.
Yeah, and I didn't even know they had football in the military like that.
They have all sports in the military. The U.S. Army actually has a track team that goes around. They have a basketball team that goes around. And I'm not talking about just the United States. When I was in, they travel international. They go over to Europe and play.
Wow.
But I was on the post team. I was a running back. And we get done with practice. We go find us a place to sit and chill. And, it's not right after practice to drink you a little bit of bourbon, but we did, and smoke cigars.
Nice.
And I sat there and I drew off of what those gentlemen had to give me. Because like I said, I'm a E3, and these guys are E5s, E6s, and E4. So I'm getting information, and I'm learning how to progress in the Army. And I truly appreciate those gentlemen for that. I really did.
And it was all because you got into that community of the cigar smoking. You learned a lot.
Yes, I did, because you listen.
And that's the thing about the whole cigar community. And when I'm at the shop, I do some talking, but I also do a lot of listening, especially when we get the older guys in and they start talking, man, I shut up.
They sit back and they fire up them a stick and they get comfortable. The wisdom just flows. I mean, it just flows.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was introduced to, and I loved it. And from then on, I was a cigar smoker. You couldn't stop me. My wife at the time, she looked at me, she's like, "What is up with you and these cigars?" I said, "You just don't understand what it does for me. It allows me to calm down. It allows me to recollect and just, get to a space where, okay, I can finish the rest of the day."
Right.
You go through hectic, crazy stuff during the beginning of the day, and then that comes in and you're like, okay, now I'm ready. So
now I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. How's that cigar going?
I'm telling you, it's good. It's smoking good. It's ugly.
It is ugly.
But you don't worry about that ugliness when you smoke it.
Hey, well, you saw that picture I posted earlier.
Yes.
That was ugly.
That
Holy
was
moly,
ugly.
that was ugly. And you know what? I still smoked it.
Come on.
I mean, as long as it'll puff.
And you enjoy it, you keep smoking it. But
anyway, so you get out of the military and you go to work for the railroad.
Yes, I
and
started
then
working for
what'd
the
you do after the railroad?
I left the railroad and became a police officer.
In East St. Louis.
I started off as an auxiliary officer in East St. Louis, Illinois.
I see. And then how long were you a police officer in East St. Louis?
I was there for an auxiliary officer as a year. And as an auxiliary officer, you're doing this for free.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're doing it for free. So it has to be a love. It has to be a love there. And
how does that work, that you can work and not get paid?
It's called auxiliary.
I get that, but
and that's what they put it under, auxiliary. You are not a paid officer.
So you're just volunteering basically.
Volunteering your time.
And are you scheduled?
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, "Hey, we need you here."
Yeah, we had a schedule we followed. You showed up. You got to keep your badge and your position. And while there,
so how many days a week did you do that?
I actually did it 4 days a week.
Man.
And I was me and another brother of mine, Antoine Smith. We were the transport officers on Saturday, because East St. Louis had a Saturday court. So if you got arrested Friday night, you didn't have to wait till Monday morning to go before the judge. They would pull you, go to Saturday court, and if you didn't have your money,
it's like night court.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Put you in the back of the paddy wagon, and I'm driving you to the county, baby.
I got you.
And I did that for a year, and then I really loved it. So I said, okay, this is where I'm gonna pursue. And then I was divorced at that time, so it was just me. And I got hired on with the Venice, Illinois Police Department full time. Went from there, academy, everything, and just enjoyed it.
Cool. So how long did you do that?
8 years.
8 years. And then after that, you decided to move to Texas.
Yeah, I moved to Texas.
And most people who are in Texas will tell you that if they're not from here, they got here as fast as they can. So anyway, you moved down to Texas, and I remember someone offered you a job, and then they gave it away to someone else.
That was the craziness, man.
Yeah.
Because I came down here on the premise that I was going to get hired with an auto dealership because I had sales in my background also. While I was volunteering, I was selling cell phones.
I didn't know selling crack counted.
Cell phones.
Cell phones, sorry.
Not
Sorry,
crack. I arrested crack dealers. But there was some drama with that wasn't mine, and I didn't get the job. So I'm here, and like I said,
and you're not going to tell us which dealership that
no,
was.
I won't divulge that.
You're a
somewhat of a stand-up
you have
guy.
class.
Yeah, somewhat of a stand-up guy.
See, I'd be raking them over the coals, man. I would.
But I will say this: we've never bought a car from.
Right.
My wife actually one time tried to go down there and buy a car. I said, "Where?" I almost said the name, and I was like. No, you're not spending my money down there.
Right.
And she's like, what? But it's no. So we went and bought one from the bank. Anyway.
Nice. And this is what y'all don't know, because this job basically got pulled out from underneath him, that he was desperate for a job, and he actually went to Allsup's, which is a convenience store.
Yes, sir.
And so you had to swallow your pride.
Swallow my pride.
Because you've gone from working the railroad, you've gone from working as a police officer, and all of a sudden, bam, you're working at a convenience store. And I'm not knocking working at a convenience store, because I've done it before myself. When I was 19, I worked at one until we got robbed. And we got robbed while I was there. And so I was like, hey, man, here's my 2-minute notice. I'm done.
Notice, yeah.
Yeah. So, when you go from those jobs,
because I went from making $70,000 a year coming here
to making $6 an hour,
$6.25, but I loved that job.
Yeah,
I loved it because it was my escape. It gave me an opportunity to get back to who I knew I should be. Like I said, that army was still in me. No matter what, that army was still going to be. I had to make a way.
And you take pride in whatever you do.
Oh yes,
and
in doing that and taking some form of pride in my job and making it a necessity, the Lord blessed me to move up.
Right.
I started, like I said, driving for CityLink, which is the city bus here. And because I already had that license, a commercial license, and it branched from there to working for the state.
See, I couldn't do the city bus thing.
Hey. Because
people would be nagging about your driving.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Yeah, but like I told him, I said,
I'm slamming on the brakes.
No.
Hey, you want to see some driving. Yeah. So anyway.
Because there are other people in the bus that didn't say anything.
It's all for one for all, baby. So anyway, and then you got on with the state at the DMV.
No, I started off at DADS, which is
DADS?
Department of Aging and Disability Services. I was security out there. I watched monitors for 8 hours a day to see if they were, abusing the people that live there. And I branched from there to an investigator with DSHS, which is the Department of State Health Services. The next step was the DMV as in executive management.
So you went from that to the management position.
Yes.
Right into being a bureaucrat.
Yeah, right into, as Bill would call me, a bureaucrat.
As the preacher man says. And then, so you've been there now for how long?
I've been with the state for 10 years.
Wow.
Correction, 9 years.
So how long do you have to be there to retire?
10 years.
That's it?
10 years you're vested.
No, well, but you're vested. You can't retire in 10 years.
They go by what you can retire. You can leave in 10 years and get a pension, but it's not nowhere near what you could have done.
If you do the age and the time.
Age and the time, which is the rule of 80. Your age and your time in service adds up to 80. You get 75%.
Ours is 70.
Ours is 80. States is 80.
Gotcha.
And then after the rule of 80 is full retirement. And I worked for a gentleman that retired from there after 40 years.
Wow.
That's the only job he started there at Dad's. He started there at 18 years old. And at 58, he had done 40 years.
Wow.
He retired. He's a pastor too. He retired. He said, when I got ready to leave to go to DSHS, he came and applied back.
Wow.
And the reason why, he said, I'm finished with the honeydew list. I have nothing to do now. So,
well, and I think I see that a lot. People retire and they either find stuff to do and they're healthy and vibrant and, just going. Or they go home and they are miserable because they don't have nothing to do. So, if you're going to retire, you really got to have something that you want to do afterwards. Or just keep working.
That's right. And what he did was he came back. We call him double dippers because he's still getting his retirement and he's getting another check from the state. So we call him double dippers.
Well, I know a guy that has been working since 74. So that's 45 years. He won't retire because he knows that if he does, that life's over. And you got to respect those guys because they know. I
met a guy at CityLink that had been driving for 50 years.
That's crazy.
And they wouldn't force him to retire.
That's awesome. As long as he can drive.
As long as he can drive, and that's all they wanted. He was punctual. They could count on him because he was there every time. And if they needed extra, he'd volunteer for it.
Yeah. A solid guy. Solid guy. Anyway, that pretty much sums up everything you need to know about Bryant. There's a bunch of other stuff that promise me you don't want to know. No, I'm just messing with you. He's a good guy. We're so happy to have him on the show. And I just wanted you guys to have a chance to get to know who he was. And let's go ahead and talk for just a minute about how we met. Bryant was looking for a shop.
Yes, I was.
He found one basically by accident. Came in, sat down. I happened to be in there one day, and I treated him like a stepchild.
Definitely.
Because, I was just ribbing him and having fun.
Being you.
I was being me. And so anyway, he really didn't know how to take me.
At
first. And then when he saw that I did that with all the regulars, he was like, okay, all right, I get it.
Yeah, because that East St. Louis that you took me from the Army back to the hood, I was looking at it, I was like, oh, man, this dude asking for something. And he don't want what he's asking for. And then I sat there and I just, like I do, I pay attention and I said, oh, he's like this. So that's just him.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm good then because I can deal with that. As long as I know who you are for real, I
can
deal
and you know
with
what's funny is, and I'm sure y'all have seen Bryant's pictures all over the place because he is a selfie queen. Selfie queen. Bryant's what? Are you 6'1"?
6 even.
6 even. Same here.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bryant's 6'1". No,
even.
He looks 6'1" because he always had a hat on.
Yes, I do.
And anyway, big black guy comes walking in, and I'll be sitting over with the crowd when he comes in. I'm like, hey, what's going on, racist?
Yep.
And everybody just kind of looks around and
they're on their heels like, oh, what? And I said, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
And they look like, okay, hey, that's my guy right there.
I like to throw a boomerang out and see who it hits.
And how it comes back, too.
Right. So, anyway, we've been good friends for, I guess, about a year.
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer than that.
I remember New Year's Eve, 18 and 19. We were sitting down in 2018, 2019. We were sitting down there, and I said, yeah, this is a great year. And I said, I'm moving into a new year with a new friend.
Heck
and
yeah.
You looked at me, it's like, yeah, anyway.
No. I said, who?
Yeah, you did say who. And I was like, you said, yeah, anyway. And I was like, yeah. And then you smiled. It's like, you know what, that's right.
Hey, we always have a good time.
Oh, got to.
Especially when I whip him at some Madden, I didn't say you don't whip me. But when I whip you, I really have a good time.
Yeah, because you love to talk noise.
I do.
And I hate losing.
He walks into the Leaf and everybody's like, hey, I heard Rob whipped your ass.
Yeah. And then I said, but did he tell you about the 3 before that?
Nope.
So let me give you a little education.
Yeah.
His ass got whooped before that one. Yes, I take my 50 to zip.
And what's funny is you would get whipped. I would take a picture of the screen after you left, and I would send it to everybody at the Leaf.
I'm like, come on, man.
We want to let you know that we've got a great interview coming up next with Michael Rosales, the co-founder of RoMa Craft.
Yes, sir.
And, man, I'll tell you what, let's set the scenario up here. Me and Bryant went down to the headquarters at RoMa Craft, and it was just amazing. Great people down there. The facility was way cool. I did post videos on that. I don't know if they're still available, but if they're not, I'll post them again tomorrow, so they'll be up on the show on Instagram. And anyway, we come in, and Mike Rosales is at the school because it's his daughter's 8th birthday.
That's correct.
And so we're hanging out. They give us a tour, show us the whole place, to give us some good RoMa Craft intemperate cigars.
That's correct.
And we're just hanging out smoking. And then Mike walks in, and man, he's like moving 90 miles an hour. I'm like, this dude's solid business. And he comes in, he's like, hey guys, I'll be right with you. I got to jump on the computer and do some business. So he gets on the computer, and I'm like, I'm real laid back.
Yeah.
You know, really nothing is like has to be done right this second with me. And so, you know, I'm thinking, man, this guy's going to be like all business.
Yes,
I'm not real sure how this interview is going to go.
He came out intimidating.
Yeah. And I was intimidated. And nobody intimidates me. You know what I mean? And so, anyway, he gets done with his computer work. And he's like, so what do you guys want to talk about? And I was like, well, you know, and before I could even say it, he was like, I really don't want to do a whole lot on the origins. And I was like, uh-oh.
Yep.
So then he says, how long do you want the interview to be? And I'm like, 30 minutes or no, I said 20 or 30 minutes. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. We can do that. No problem. So then because this show is actually going to be a 2-part show, because the interview was not 20 or 30 minutes.
No,
it was an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so we're going to break this up into 2 episodes. I've had feedback from the listeners that said some of them wanted to just do one big show. And then some of them were like, well, I don't really have time to listen to one big 3-hour show. So what I'm going to do is break it up into 2 parts, and then but we're going to release it at the same time. That way, if you want to, you can just listen straight on through. And if you want to save it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the next week for the second one, you can do whatever you want to do. But anyway, man, we got a great interview with Michael Rosales coming up. And before we get onto it, I just want to tell you guys, the interview was almost 2 hours. But then whenever we got done with the interview, we stuck around for another hour and a half, just hanging out with this cool dude. And I mean, a lot of stuff we found out about him after the interview. So anyway, guys, we're going to have a quick little break, and we will be right back with Michael Rosales. Welcome back, Cigar Talk. I'm your host, Rob Jones, and today we are recording from Paradise. And when I say Paradise, I mean we're at the RoMa Craft headquarters. We've been trying to get here for a year, and we finally made it. Anyway, we have the co-founder, Mike Rosales, with us. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. Welcome to the land of milk and honey.
Oh, man, we love it here.
Yeah, they get you squared away with some something to smoke, something to drink.
I got an Aquitaine, one of my very favorite cigars.
Okay, very good. What's my man over here smoking? What you got?
Exactly the same. Aquitaine and my favorite Topo Chico.
Okay. Danny's about to light something up. Danny, what do you got?
Oh, this is the Intemperance BA Avarice.
Okay. So people know Danny Vasquez is one of our, he's my right-hand man. He's my go-to. Anyways, he also works here. He's been here about a year and a half. But what do you guys think of the headquarters?
Man, we love it. And you know what's funny is when we walked in the front door, I thought I was looking at your homepage.
Okay, yeah.
That wood in the background, it was like, man, it reminds me of being already here just by looking at the website.
Yeah, so when you walk in the door, you immediately get presented to the RoMa Craft logo on the on some old wood that came out of a barn. And we did that 3/4 inch standoff that comes out really sharp. It's just like very first thing you see as soon as you walk in. For those who are not here, they need a good visual. So that's, you know, what's funny is people get kind of stuck on that wall and they don't know which way to go. So they left, right, or whatever. So when we get food deliveries, they just kind of, you know, like wait for somebody to kind of come meet them. So,
I got you. Yeah. Well, then we were greeted by your lovely wife, and she gave us a tour, and she was telling us about the Weasel team.
Yeah. So
would you kind of explain that to everybody?
So there are multiple levels of weasels. Just kind of briefly, so there's we have a trade show. It's called IPCPR. Back in the day, it used to be called RTDA, and that's it's an annual convention. And when new media was coming up, when I say new media, podcast, websites that did reviews, those types of things, there was an influx of people that were coming up saying, "Hey, you know, if you give me a box of cigars, I'll do a review for the cigar." And it's like, well, come on now, you don't need a full box to do a review. And so they decided to kind of ban new media members. And so now there are some really good ones. There are people who put a lot of time and investment, and you know, Cigar Authority and Half Wheel, Cigar Coop, and these guys that put out content daily, right? So they spend a lot of money. You know, and that's their job. It's not necessarily a hobby, but then there's also there's levels, right? So,
sure.
So we thought it was kind of, you know, new media has always been good to us because we don't advertise Cigar Aficionado or Cigar Snob. Cigar Press, not that those are, we just don't advertise at all, right?
Free advertising.
Yeah, so the new media guys, if they would give us the love, they would hang out. They're younger, they're kind of coming up with us, right? So they're not. So anyway, so we thought it would be kind of funny if we said, well, we came up with the sticker with the weasel, with the cigar in his mouth, and said, I'm not allowed to ask for cigars, but that sure looks tasty. And so we made an announcement. We thought that it was kind of silly that the IPCPR would not allow these guys to come into the trade show. And anyway, so we said, well, you can come by, we'll hook you up, right? So that was kind of the thing. And so it just kind of stuck. And so there are levels of guys who are weasels. There's the guys who never have a cigar that are, that want to smoke a cigar, but they come over, right? So there's that weasel. And then there are people who are, constantly looking for the new latest and greatest, right? So, what's that taste like? I've never had that before. What's that taste like? That's a sneaky weasel. That's, so there's levels. So now, then what started kind of happening is the guys who would follow us on social media and were like, oh, hey, I saw you guys blending this, or I saw you guys were working on that. How do I get that? Where's that, and so you pull something out and you kind of reward them for kind of following us on social media and kind of being engaged with us as a consumer, right?
Gotcha.
And so, listen, I mean, Cynthia Fuente to me is kind of like the goddess of that, right? Like she was always like, if you ran into Cynthia Fuente at anything back in the day, she would pull out something like, hey, this is something from my dad's personal stash or whatever. And so, I give her props. She kind of started that. And, and so we just kind of following that legacy. And so now there's, the Zycar team who we've done a partnership with all the accessories that are kind of up in our display room, that are available at some of your local retailers. We had a local guy named John D. Oliver who actually now works for us, but he was the Texas territory rep and would stop by. And so when they were in Kansas City and they would do their sales meetings, they would make sure that, hey, make sure you bring some of that RoMa Craft by, right?
Yeah.
So they dubbed themselves Weasel Team 6, which is where the hashtag WT6 comes from, right?
Okay.
So the Weasel Team, which is like next level, stealthy kind of weasel. Is there anything you want to add to that? Did I leave anything out, Danny?
No, it's funny how we kind of use it as our mascot and also trademark, so don't get any ideas. But we encourage it, obviously with using the weasel, but at the same time, it's, no dry begging, just do actual weaseling. And we're professionals, so we can see it coming from a mile away. So, no, I mean, it's a great thing. Guys take pride in it. They love being part of, getting the stickers or the patches that say Weasel Team. So it's a really cool and fun kind of thing to have available.
Well, I love the actual weasel on there, and I noticed it's on some of the cutters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's part of the Zycar stuff that we did, right? So they did a Cro-Magnon set. They did a Intemperance set, which is one of our other brands, and then they followed up with the Weasel Team, or the Weasel themselves. And they thought, and it sells like crazy. I mean, it's one of those things that Danny's got he's got a one-off.
Yeah, these weren't actually made. This is the black weasel with the RoMa.
Yeah. So when we originally kind of started, they actually made like 25 of those and sent us those, and so it's one of those things that you just kind of stuck, and now it's part of who we are, and as an identity, and never in a million years would I have thought that would be our mascot, but it is. So
so we're finding out that now everybody needs to understand that there are levels to being a weasel.
Yes,
you go from a regular weasel to a sneaky weasel to possibly a Weasel Team 6.
That's right. Now, and it's all self-appointed, right? So
yeah, no doubt. Some of the Weasel Team 6 guys, they know the game, so they'll get us stuff in kind of hopes, they'll send whatever it is, beer, other cigars, and then, that's next level weasel where they...
Danny, show me your jersey. That's next level right there.
I got an autographed Ken Hamlin jersey today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he was here earlier this morning. He stopped by, say hello. He's a Dallas Cowboy. What was his team?
Seahawks was where he got drafted.
Yeah.
Played in the Super Bowl.
He was a receiver?
No, he was a safety.
Safety.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, I mean, that's kind of the thing. So, really it's one of the things that I think people kind of miss about the cigar industry as a whole is the camaraderie that comes along with, cigar smoking, right? And one of the best things that I've ever heard, as far as cigar smoking is concerned, is that the cigar smoke itself is not necessarily something that's addictive. it's the enjoyment and the camaraderie that comes along with it that is actually the enjoyment part, right? So that's one of those things that I think that people kind of forget about, right? So when you have a cookout or you have a something like this and you invite people over, those are things that I think people really that's what's enjoyable, right? So when you light a cigar and you have good conversation and you get a chance to spend some time with people that are like-minded and you can go into any cigar shop, right, and strike up a conversation and really enjoy that moment within that community.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. No matter what your social economic status is or where you come from or your background, you could be next to a lawyer, a doctor, or up in New York City, the trash guys. I mean, they're probably the biggest. I don't think they call them trash guys up there. I think what do they call them? They call them
sanitary workers.
Sanitary guys.
There you go.
Right. So, but those are the guys that are in the cigar shops, and they smoke like crazy. So they get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're done by 12. And then they hang out in the cigar shops, right? So, same with all the other service guys that, firefighters and police guys. And, but so that's what I'm saying is that there's all types of walks of life that you can come in there and start up a conversation. And that right there is really what brings this community together. Which
it's the fostering of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We are a neighborhood of brothers.
That's it.
Not just brothers, but of people that come together with a like mind. And it's mainly about enjoying that cigar, enjoying that time together. And that's where we speak about the brick and mortars. Mm-hmm. It's a neighborhood. It's a home away from home.
Right.
And that's exactly what you were just speaking on.
Yeah. Daddy daycare, AKA.
So tell us about how you actually came into working with Skip on forming RoMa Craft.
Yeah, so kind of the brief kind of origin story. Skip had a cigar shop in Galveston Bay that when I kind of was starting to work with him, he actually lived here in Austin with his family, but he had the cigar shop in Galveston. And so we would meet up in the cigar shops around Austin, right? So at that time, how I kind of got into the industry, I had a guy by the name of Raul Disla who works now at the Natsa factory, but he worked with me here in Texas at Heroes and Legacies here in Austin and in Lubbock. We also worked at Elite up in Dallas. We did Stogie's down in Houston. It's a lot of really good cigar shops around Texas. And so the idea and concept was we would come in, we would roll your cigars. We would do about 2,000. And we would custom blend 2 or 3 different blends on site. And you would host him for, 2 to 3 weeks up to a month. Sometimes longer. As long as, you got him to and from work and he could get back and forth and he was fed. And then the factory would actually recreate or reproduce the house blends, right? But at least you could get instant feedback from the guys who were buying cigars, whether or not they liked them or they didn't like them, right? So we were doing, we were bringing up quite a bit of tobacco, we were rolling quite a bit of cigars, and so Skip had heard about this and seen and met Raul, and while he was a big Camacho shop, so he was taking guys down to the Camacho factory in Don Lee and spent a lot of time in Honduras and Nicaragua and was just a very passionate guy. And he was really a consumer first and then kind of invested in the shop. They kind of ran it mediocrely and then he decided to kind of take it over, and him and his partner Charlie had it. And then the hurricane hit. And but while he was kind of in that process, what he had done was he had built a really strong Twitter following. So back then there was no Facebook and there was no Instagram. It was just Twitter. And so he was using Twitter to kind of broadcast what was going on with the island, right? This street is shut down and this is what's going on, and just kind of giving kind of news information to people who had been down to the island, right? So he kind of created this customer base because, a lot of people don't live necessarily on the island, but they go to visit, right? So his shops were guys that came in and out all the time. So when he approached me about, hey, I used to buy these cigars from Camacho, but when they sold to Davidoff, he could no longer get them. And so they would go down there and they would buy, stuff that was overrun or stuff that was no longer being produced, and it had just kind of been aging, and they didn't really know what they were going to do with it. But there might be, 2,000 or 20,000 cigars, and he would just buy them and then bring them up. And then he had an escaparate where he would put it like a breakdown of the cigar, kind of blend profile, and then, mark it out depending on how well he thought the cigar was. And so, but there was one that he kept going back to. And so he brought it to us and said, could you reproduce this here? Now, I'm always like, game on, challenge accepted, right? So, but the reality was is that we just didn't have the type of tobacco to do it. We needed thicker, heavier types of tobacco. And so Raul's brother, Esteban, who is now a partner in the factory, ran a factory called Scandinavia, which is owned by General. But before that, it was owned by the Tarano family. So Charlie and Carlos Tarano owned Latin Cigars, sold it to Scandinavia. And then whenever that happened, Esteban stayed on. Raul came to work for me. And that's kind of how that family kind of came together, right? So I said, well, I'm going to be going down to Nicaragua, but we can work on this blend while I'm down there. And so we kind of gave him what we were looking for, blend profile, the types of tobacco that we were looking for. And so Esteban, Raul, and I kind of got together, and then we kind of came up with the first kind of phase of Cro-Magnon. And so I brought that back, gave it to Skip, and said, well, what do you think about this? And he's like, this is like it is better than what the other cigar had. Now, that cigar that he'd given me had, I don't know, 2 or 3 years on it, smelled like cedar, so I mean, that's really hard to reproduce, right? But, so we blended the very first Cro-Magnon, which was a broadleaf wrapper, Cameroon binder, Nicaraguan filler. And, we made some minor tweaks to it, and he was like, this is a game changer. And what's funny is that we both had different visions originally. Because, this cigar right off the table was super strong, rustic, real toothy, and, would put you on your ass. Can we say ass?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, for me, like, I was looking for more finesse, something that, not necessarily like Davidoff or Ashton, but something that that was just not like, boom, this is in your face. And so he's like, no, man, this is what people are looking for. This is a game changer. So now keep in mind, as a consumer, at our local shop over here in Pipe World in Round Rock, he was running about a $2,500, $3,000 tab a month for the cigars that he was buying and smoking. He's not a collector. He's a smoker, right? So one thing that I could say about anything is that he could quickly tell you whether or not a cigar is marketable, good for the market, that he had that kind of insight as a cigar smoker, right? So very few people, and I think I smoke a lot, but I mean, I think, he at that time was smoking probably 2x, 3x more than I was on a regular basis. So I trusted really what he was thinking. And, and I'm thinking, finesse, he's thinking, full body in your face, hit him one time real good. And so anyway, so what ended up happening was he was starting to kind of post on Twitter the progress of this project. Right. And next thing you know, I have to kind of back up. There was another podcast at the time. It's called Stogie Fresh, which was by Doc Diaz, who at the time was the innovator for cigar podcast. Like, he was the OG of podcasts for the cigar community. And, but he was really methodical, breakdown, went to the, fields and spent time in Nicaragua and Costa Rica, Dominican, and was very just tuned into the industry as a whole. And so what was really kind of interesting is that Doc one time couldn't make it to IPCPR. So whenever the hurricane hit, Skip still wanted to go to IPCPR. So he said, Doc asked him if he would attend and do this kind of interview stuff with some of the manufacturers in his spot, right? So Skip at that time was a heavy consumer, had a cigar shop, and also had some experience in the podcast side, which is where the Weasel thing kind of came into, because they were kind of peers. So here I am kind of working on the tobacco side, making cigars, selecting tobacco, importing tobacco. And, Skip had all these other things, but he also had a full-time job at Dell. So, but he never had to go into Dell. He worked from his house. And so, he would be up till, he never sleeps, right? So he's up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, on phone calls with Malaysia and India and whatever. So I would go over, hang out in his house, in his little man cave. And so whenever we brought the cigars in from Nicaragua, and we're kind of talking about this, what do you think about, this man cave Cro-Magnon kind of idea? And I thought, man, we just start kind of throwing names out, knuckle dragger, and sizes, and so the box is like this with the font that, like, something you would find in a museum that has a very specific font type font to it, and it's just very rustic, like you would find it in the back of the museum, kind of hidden. and Indiana Jones kind of style, right? So anyway, so it was like, yeah, and originally I was thinking, gold bands and foiled, I mean, just like, kind of gaudy, right? And he's like, no, man, simple, right? And simple but substantial. That was kind of something that he always kind of preached. And I said, let's just try it, right? So all the guys on Twitter were like, hey, send me a 5-pack of those. So I ended up making 5,000 cigars. I imported them in, kind of sold it to him and his company. And then he sold through them through Twitter. And then his daughters, his 2 younger daughters, who at the time were like, 14, 15 years old, and his wife would come over and they would stuff envelopes. And I was on the phone charging people's credit cards. And we blew through those in a couple of days.
Wow.
Right? So anyway, so then, the word started kind of getting out. And then all the shops that I was kind of selling, making cigars for were like, well, what's this cigar that you've come out with that you're not selling to us? Yeah. And, I'm like, well, it's not really my cigar. It is, but it's not. I don't really know. And so that was in 2010. In 2011, we kept going. And then I get a phone call in May of 2011, and they tell me that there's no more broadleaf. So Skip's like, well, how much money do you need? Go buy some more. I'm like, well, it didn't work that way. And which is funny because it still is the same way currently, right? So, the broadleaf, it's hit or miss. It's either really, really good or it's really, really bad. It's got holes in it. You can't make it. You can't use it. So we fly down to Nicaragua. I introduced him to Esteban, and, it just became one of those things. So we ended up meeting up with Gustavo Cura, who's from the Olivas out of Tampa. They're the biggest tobacco producers, growers, one of them. And so they said, well, how much do you want? So how much will you sell us? So we go down, we put our name on, I think 800 pounds of Habano, which is what we use for the Aquitaine, and then about 550 pounds of broadleaf, which at the time, I don't know, it's like $350,000 worth of stuff, right? And I'm like, so what happened? You know what I mean? Like, what how does what are we doing? And so he's like, don't worry about it. He had a vision, he had a plan, and so that 2012 we launched RoMa, which is Rosales and Martin, the first two last initials of my last name, R-O for Rosales, and M-A for Martin, RoMa.
Gotcha.
Craft tobacco.
And that's what I was wondering where that name came from.
Yeah. And so that's, so we wanted to really, we only make 1 million cigars. So we knew early on we wanted to be kind of on a smaller scale. We didn't want to be mass market. And the Texas, the TX for the Cairo, RoMa, Roman Catholic, is a TX symbol. We're based out of Texas. So we wanted to represent that we're from Texas. So that's where the logo comes from, right? So, so you kind of, here we are kind of fast forwarding up to 2019, and you look about, like how much, where we started at to where we are today, it's just like night and day difference. And so that's kind of the brief origin story.
Well, and what's cool about it is whenever I first started smoking RoMa Craft, I guess it's been about 4 years ago, the band is actually what drew me to it because it wasn't flashy and gold and gaudy. It was just kind of like mysterious, like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys know, but Danny Vasquez, a guy that we were talking about earlier, who's also on this podcast that hadn't said 2 words, he had a
what up?
He has a cigar line as well. Then you want to talk to him about that for quickly?
Yeah, super quickly. It was essentially just a passion project that I took too far, or a hobby that I took too far, and built the passion up and started learning the industry side of it, and it took me a couple of years to really get my bearings on the production side of cigars, and then I launched a cigar called The Voyage, and it was a crash course in being in the cigar industry super, super fast.
Did it have gold foil on it?
It had silver foil on it.
Silver foil? Okay. You see, but that's kind of the initial kind of thought is like that's the trend, right? So there's coins. Somehow, I don't know where the coins came from, what you actually won or what they represent, but and I'm not trying to pick on Danny. I'm just trying to make this connection that's kind of the mindset, right? And so where we wanted to take this simple but substantial kind of approach, right? So just a very plain but very thick box, right? So a box inside of a box with very simple font. And basically a very simple band, right? So, and kind of the idea is like, if somebody walked in wearing a black suit and a white tie, or black suit, black tie, white shirt, we would kind of turn around and kind of look at that guy going, where's he going? You know what I mean? Like it just kind of demands attention. Even, it could be wrinkled all to death, but at the same time, you would look at it and go, man, that guy looks well put together, right? And so that was kind of the idea with the band is, how do you create something that's simple but substantial that kind of still draws people in? So the idea and this concept about layers, right? So about having depth. So how do you use a lot of depth without actually using a lot of noise? And so this concept of like if you were listening to a symphony and all of a sudden you hear bong, in the background, like that doesn't really quite go well together. Right?
Gotcha.
So there's these noise frequencies. So the idea with this is how do you kind of peel back the layers, right? It's like, we got guys that complain that they can get the bands off all the time. But then when you kind of educate them about how to take the bands off, like you just kind of slide it over the cigar, over the hot part, then they look at it and go, oh, there's a secondary band on there. What's the band got? And then they start looking, oh, there's cave art, and it's so there's a ton of detail without actually being like really high frequency kind of like that are out of place, right? So
yeah,
that was
not
kind of
colored.
right.
So you really got to look at it to see it.
Yeah.
And we actually talked about that a few weeks ago on the show, that it was an Easter egg, and we didn't want to spoil it for everybody, but I didn't know that there was the caveman art on the band, and probably till 2 years after I'd been smoking RoMa Craft.
I hear it all the time.
You ruined it, Mike. Now nobody has to go buy the cigar to look at it. It's like, there it is.
Yeah. No, but I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm sure there's still people out there struggling to get the bands off, but once you figure out how to get the bands off, mind blown. Boom, there it is.
Hey, well, I'm hoping we educated a bunch of people on that, because I know a bunch of people that's always complaining they can't get the band off. So we'll spread the love there.
Well, if you look at our bands, it's actually a very thick wine paper, right? So most cigar bands are super thin, and so they kind of peel off very easy. Where this it's very dense and it adheres very easily, right? So the plus, there's a lot of white. So there are a couple pet peeves. One, when you take off a cigar and the back of the cigar is taped or glued to the back of the band and it rips off.
Right.
Right. I can't stand that. For some reason, it usually happens in higher priced cigars. But that was pet peeve number one. Pet peeve number two, when you kind of work with dark tobacco like we do, it has a tendency, whenever your fingers get wet, that it'll stain, and then it'll kind of smudge the white. So the girls or people who actually do, I don't want to type, but the people who actually put the bands on, most of them are women because they're very detail oriented, actually have to wipe their fingers off every time that they put on another band. So it's a little bit more labor intensive, so they can't do it quickly, but it keeps from having smeared tobacco stains on the white part of the band, which would be very, for me, it's kind of a pet peeve, right? It goes against the whole craft part of it, right? So you have to take your time and be more diligent. But if you do, then the presentation of it comes together full circle, right?
I got you. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was it your intention from the beginning to create a great cigar at a great price point? Because I think your cigar line is probably one of the most valued price points on the market. Yeah.
So when we first launched, so because I had already had a on the manufacturing selling side, I also had a small brand that I started off with called Adrian's, which was named after my son. So it was Adrian's Costa Rican Cigars. So one of the things that we kind of talked about early on was like the economics of what it costs to go, from each territory to go from location to location, right? And I think that a lot of people don't really do the math to really kind of understand that. And I'll give you kind of a sample of what I mean by that. So let's say, for example, this is our sales team, and you have the Northeast, right? So you got to go up to, you fly into Newark, you hit, Jersey, Philadelphia, maybe New York City, maybe Delaware. So, you buy a ticket, $600, $700. You get a rental car, that's $350. You got gas, you got tolls. Then hotels, so you've got, $200 a night, and that kind of market is really kind of what you're going to realistically kind of pay, maybe even $250. So if you're going to be there for 4 or 5 days, before you even touch down, you've got, $2,200, $2,500, right? That's already kind of there. So so when you're away from, your home base, right? So in order to break even, you've got to really even do, $10,000 to $15,000 in sales to even make it even worth your while to even go up there, right? So if you didn't have a market already established, you don't have accounts, and you have to go, door to door to every cigar shop and ask them to please carry your cigar, it really sets the tone as to, why would I want to carry your cigars? So let's say, for example, our cigars MSRP'd at $12. The very first thing they're going to tell you is, well, I've never even heard of your cigar. Why would I carry that? Oh, and it's $12? Do you know who else is at $12? You got to compete against this guy, this guy, this guy. Now, at any price level, you still have to compete, right? But if I said, hey, you know what, just give it a shot, right? You say, okay, send me 4 or 5 boxes. You send 4 or 5 boxes. You hope to get paid, right? And then by the time that they get it, they put it on the shelf for the first week or two. It says, hey, we got a new cigar in here. Try it. And then if the guys don't come back to it again and again and again, then usually what will happen is it'll finally make it from the new table location over onto somewhere on the wall and then on the top shelf for the first week. And then something new comes in and it gets bumped down to the middle shelf. And then, no one has really come back to it. And then it makes it down to the bottom shelf and then they close it out and they sell it. It's in the grab bag for 50% off just so they can get their money back out of it. That whole kind of spiral is kind of something that we had identified early on as, why do it that way? Right? Like that's the standard, typical kind of way to market, go-to market strategy for some reason, right? Now, for good or bad or indifferent, but it was just something that, I had spent a lot of time doing that here in Texas. Now, you can get to 3 or 4 great markets quickly from here. You can go to Dallas, you can go to Houston, San Antonio, and then here in Austin. But, and I really wouldn't call Austin a great market. It's a solid market, but it's not, it's not the Northeast, like where there's a great cigar shop, 5 miles away from everywhere. Now, Dallas and Houston have that, but not down here. But the idea is that, okay, what if because we're making our own cigars and there's not another factory producing them, but we actually make it at Anica Sueño, which is our factory, why not set the price point at something that's super competitive, that other boutiques are $2 to $3 more expensive for the same style of cigar, right? So it kind of does a couple of things. That's number one. Number two was we wanted to go kind of direct to the consumers, which is why we're super active on social media. Me, not so much, but Skip and Danny are. But there's this we're using social media to kind of reach these heavy cigar consumers that are collectors and smokers and guys that are kind of in this group, but they're using social media platforms to engage other cigar smokers, right? So if you can kind of go from the bottom up versus the top down, then you got guys that are asking for that product, which makes it easier to get on the shelf, right? And so then once you put it on the shelves and they make that connection, now the cigar shop becomes a conduit to my consumer. Does that make sense? So,
absolutely.
So instead of saying, okay, please take my cigar, now people are going, hey, man, I got guys coming here asking for your cigar. I got to have it. Like, what's going on? Why all of a sudden are these 10, 15, 20 guys coming in here asking for this product. So, but it changes the dynamics of the cigar from please take my cigar to, hey, I really got to have your cigar. And when they say I really got to have your cigar, then that means they're willing to, kind of invest in it. And now they got skin in the game. Now they got to turn it and they got to, now they're proud to have it versus just something of, hey, I did you a favor. Thanks a lot for coming by to see me. And, here's a small little order. Right.
Right.
So knowing kind of that, so to answer your question, yes, we designed it on purpose. So in order to do that, because we make our own cigars, we set the standard. And because you have a name like Craft in your name, you have to put out a craft product. Now, all factories are making the same type of cigars, right? However, if we were mass produced and put out there, it's a little easier to kind of cut corners, right? And whenever you start cutting corners, maybe you do it the first time, nobody notices. Second time, nobody notices. Now you cut 2 or 3 corners. And then all of a sudden, and I tell the guys at the factory, and that was kind of the hard thing, was setting the culture in the factory, right? So you go into a factory, and a lot of guys have their heads down, and we try to make it really light and have fun and, make sure you bring your family up, we feed the factory and feed their family, and we have a lot of fun. But, they just kind of want to work, put their head down, bang out the product. But we early on, we went in and said, okay, hey, there's X amount of money tied into the bunch. Everything starts at selecting the right tobacco, right? So if you've heard Papa John say good ingredients, good pizza, or whatever they say, it's the same thing. If you have good quality tobacco early on, it's much easier to make a good cigar on the back end. But in the buncher's hand, whenever he starts that, It's the construction, right? It's how it burns. It's the combustion. It's all these things that really, really matter, right? And so by the time that you start off, you've got X amount of money invested at this point, but then you roll it, you age it, you package it, you ship it, it's freighted, it's trucked around, it's finally sold. There's 16 to 24 weeks involved just in that process alone, right? So it's a lot of time and money is invested. And it all kind of comes back to this one guy who's got the tobacco in his hand from this very chair, right? So how do I explain to somebody who doesn't understand the U.S. market or the cigar sales side of it to say, hey, if I sell this product to you who may have 5 to 7, 8 stores, and he's got a brother that's got 3 or 4 stores, right? And they come back and they go, hey, Rosales, every cigar that one of my guys, they bought a box and 7 cigars are plugged, they don't burn right, they're flawed. We noticed it on the last shipment, but on the same shipment, we're having the same kind of issues. And, I'm going to pull your products from my store, Oh, and so is my brother who's got, 7 stores as well, right? And so all the time and money that you invested on the U.S. side is now lost. So setting the culture early on and trying to explain to them this kind of pass-through of time and effort and energy and how that can be totally derailed by one guy selecting your cigar, paying for it, lighting it, and going, I had a bad experience, right? So in order to do that, we kind of had to put our money where our mouth is at and say, hey, you want to smoke this cigar, we'll do everything on our end to make sure that it's repeatable and sustainable, that every time you smoke it, it'll be impeccable draw, you'll have a very good experience, and you won't pay out the wazoo for it, right? And because we don't have sales reps that are on the boots on the ground per se, we're able to kind of absorb that and offer our cigars at a better price in the market, which allows us to capture a better market share at a faster rate. So
I was going to say, I love the quality of RoMa Craft, and I'll tell you, I've smoked some cigars that were, let's just say, the vein on the forehead pops out because the draw is just so tight.
Yeah.
And immediately when I have a bad cigar, the first thing I want to do is go have a RoMa Craft because I know that's not going to happen, and it's like, oh, now I can relax and enjoy a cigar.
Well, we spent a lot of time in Europe. We have a cigar line that we introduced into Europe called the Wonderlust, which has the blue band on it that is not coming to the States, unfortunately. But one of the things that, from a Cuban smoker perspective versus United States perspective, like we do these how it kind of works over there is you're not really allowed, some shops you can, but for a lot of countries, they've outlawed smoking in the cigar shop. So they have these private clubs that are off-site. So they'll have 40, 50 guys that are come in that they do dinner and you kind of talk about the origin story and what's RoMa and how you're different from other people and kind of what we're talking about here. What's really interesting is that whenever a Cuban smoker goes and they pick out a box of cigars, they'll go through 2 or 3 boxes to pick out the 7, 8, 10, 12 cigars that they want to make. But they build a box out of other boxes based on color shade, feel, texture, whatever else. But whenever we ask them, how many cigars out of that 20, 25 boxes, cigars that you pulled from to make your box, how many of them are bad, like unsmokable, that, it's overwhelmingly by, it's pretty common. Like that's the common response, right? And you're like, so hang on a second. So you have a 25%, 30% margin of error for a product that costs you $300-$400 for a box, $200 or $300 for a box of cigars. However, in the U.S. side, I'm not allowed to have any. Like the margin of error is super thin, right? Because the competition is so fierce over here, right? Because you can go through any cigar shop. Famous has 21,000 different unique SKUs or something crazy like that. And most shops have like 750 to 800 different SKUs, right? So, over here on the U.S. side, but I'm not allowed to have, like, at least that's how I feel, right? That's the pressure that's put on us is because one, we're a fairly new company. We've been around since 2010, 2012 officially. But we're competing against ourselves over and over again. And so, for me, there's a lot of pride that goes into that, right? And take ownership of, hey, we put something in your hand and you take your hard-earned money and you want to spend an hour and a half on my products. That's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's, you have 850 different options you could smoke from. But the guy comes in, he picks up one of my cigars, and he smokes it. Like that's a huge, like that's the ultimate compliment, right? And so, my response to that is I want you to have a good experience over and over and over again, right? And so it's setting a culture and setting and creating a mindset of why it's so important to us, right? So again, you couldn't have craft in your name if that's not something that you're willing to exceed those expectations.
Absolutely.
Right. So I mean, it means, like I said, it means the world. Like people come by here and they want to spend an hour and a half, I mean, they can go anywhere, right? Like, it's like, man, that's a really cool feeling. It's like, I'm appreciative that you made the time. So typically when people come in, like I try to, even though I got stuff to do, I want to, make out some time so that way they feel like, hey, like they're equally engaged, right? So they made the effort to come to me. That's the least I could do is make a little bit of time for them, right? And same thing for the cigars. It's like we want to make sure that now there are challenges with that, right? Because I can't control the shop's humidity levels, and our cigars perform because they're thicker tobaccos at they don't necessarily need, like we dry box. The cigar that I picked up and smoked was on my desk all day long, right? Because it's a thicker tobacco, so it can actually stay out of the humidity, relative humidity, without really performing that, and performing well. I truly believe that, 65, 63 is a really good humidity level for our products. So if it's, I think humidity levels kind of are the biggest kind of temperance or bigger kind of factor is whether or not the cigar burns correctly and everything else, right? So I can't control the shop and how they or the consumer when they buy them and how they are handled once they make that. But you try to do everything you can to make sure that it will perform everything whenever they smoke it. So
we think you're doing a great job.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So Danny's been with you for how long?
He can answer that question.
A little over a year and a half now. Yeah, so September
he's from Maryland.
2017.
Yeah, he told us earlier he's from Maryland.
Yeah,
and
I'm kind of a mutt. I mean, that's where I came from. But I was born in New York, raised in Florida. I lived in Georgia for a while. Then
he's like Tupac. He gets around.
He gets around. Yeah, because you can tell that New York accent, and no matter how hard you try to hide it.
You should see it in traffic.
Yeah, we just did the stint where we went from it was all over the place, but basically we flew into Newark, went over to Easton, PA, and then up to the Poconos, all the way up to Syracuse, over to Buffalo, Niagara Falls, down to DC, and he immediately was kind of in his zone. I let him drive because I knew if I was driving, he'd get car sick. So so anyway, so we had a good time, but it was like instantly kind of this aggressive, trying to go about 120, in and out of traffic, get out of my way.
We were never late anywhere, though, I'd say.
So.
Well, he was telling us earlier, the first time he met you, it was for a car ride.
Well, he picked me up from the hotel.
Hadn't met you yet. And
he didn't know who I was.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, and that's why. That's
what I told them. It was like I didn't really know much about RoMa because I was so busy, kind of in my world. I didn't know you, and I'm like, I didn't know Mike. Mike, sure enough, didn't know who I was until kind of that meeting.
I don't open the book of face. I try to stay away from it. But, that was kind of one of the things. So we had this guy named Coy who worked for us for a while, and then he worked at a cigar shop up in Princeton and in New Hope, Pennsylvania, called A Little Taste of Cuba, which actually does a lot. They do all of the Tobacconist University. Mm-hmm. And so I'd seen him with in action, selling cigars in his shop, and he's really good one-on-one. And so he had mentioned that he was looking at doing something a little different. So I said, why don't you come down and work? Because this was early on. We didn't have any help. It was just me and Angela at the time. And so he came down and worked, and then so he decided he wanted to go back home to Charleston. He didn't really kind of fit in with Austin. So Charleston is where he went to school, so he wanted to get back to Charleston. So he left, and he ended up taking a job with a company called Black Label. And anyway, so we needed somebody, and Danny had just made this announcement that with the FDA kind of looming, and it was kind of a good time for him to kind of take a step back from what was going on with his cigar brand, and so we immediately kind of said, why don't you come work with us, right? And so I was doing some events in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we linked up in Tulsa, flew him in, and kind of went around, and No, it's kind of a good opportunity for him to really kind of see what RoMa is all about, because he got a chance to see kind of the cigar nerds and
The
fanboys,
nuts and bolts of it.
and kind of see the product kind of and so I mean we immediately kind of clicked. I mean, we have very similar personalities, and so we kind of walked away from it and said, I think if you're willing to relocate and come to Texas, you come work for us. And like I said, I mean he's been a big piece to what we've been able to do over the last year and a half.
And Danny, had you been to Texas much before?
I had never been to Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what's funny about that story is I'm like, it could have went one of two ways, like either the way it did or a complete, just fly him home straight from Oklahoma. Just forget it. We've been fighting this whole time.
But I think again, there aren't a whole lot of people in the cigar industry that you don't want to be around.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So
there are some.
There are some. There's a few. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, for the most part, you can kind of get along with most people.
Well, and I tell people the reason that we started the podcast is because originally I was doing a blog of cigar shop reviews.
Did you ask for a free product for a review?
I did not.
No.
I'm not a weasel.
You were reviewing the lounges?
I was going around different lounges and interviewing the owners. Excuse me.
So, I think that that's a pretty cool concept. How did that go?
It went real well. But what I learned after about 6 shops was I wanted to bring the people with me because I was meeting these fantastic people. And like we talk about all the time, the community was there. And I was just like, I don't want to write about a shop and say that you should visit it or you shouldn't visit it. It's more like I want to bring the story to you instead of just writing about the shop itself. Because we were doing, how's their humidor, how's the lounge, how's the selection. And it was really good. But at the same time, I felt like, man, I want to bring people with us to interview these people so that they get to hear the story.
What's your background to this?
Me and Rob met at the Leaf.
Okay.
And I was searching because, like I said, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois. So I was searching for a cigar shop, and I found the Leaf in Abilene, and I found someone that shared a lot of like mentality. First of all, because we both railroaded at one time. I railroaded early on.
Did you get a pocket watch?
Oh, yeah. I had the pocket watch and the overalls.
Okay. Right. All right.
I didn't wear the hat, though.
Okay. I actually have my godfather gave me, whenever he passed away, his father's. And I guess when you retire, when you're 25th year, it's either gold or silver. And,
right?
Yes.
And so I have one of those. It's in one of my collectibles.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's in a little glass
And see,
case.
my family was railroaders also, my father and grandfather. So we started a conversation that blossomed into a relationship. We are good friends. And
He could put up with a real asshole.
yes. And that's,
Who's
that's
the big spoon? That's what I really want to know. Okay.
me coming from a cop mindset. I can deal with him. And it just blossomed from there. He had always said he wanted a podcast, and we love cigars. And he started off, and then 16 or 17 episodes in, he had me on as a guest, and it blossomed from there.
Okay. Now, what shop did you hang out at in St. Louis?
I actually just bought my own and went home.
Okay, but
Because
what
I
shop
worked
did you go to though?
It was more than one.
Name a couple.
One
Did you
of
go
them-
to the Hill?
I went to the Hill.
Okay.
I bought at the
Did
Hill.
you stop and get some Italian food while you were up there?
Oh, you have to.
You have to.
You can't go to the Hill and not eat Italian food.
So for those that don't know, the Hill,
yes, in St. Louis.
Back whenever after World War II, there was a lot of guys, one because of the railroads. There's a lot of Italian guys, mafia dudes.
That's good. I was going to say the mob.
Yeah. And we weren't going to call nobody out. We weren't going to name no names or anything. But anyway, so there's also these row of houses that are kind of these that they did for the soldiers when they came back, and so there's a very unique type of architecture in the houses that are really kind of
And
cool.
the windmill. Did you see
Yeah,
the windmill?
yeah. I mean, and so I really enjoy. Like I was telling you, like when you go to St. Louis, there's so many. One, the city is very, it's so diverse.
Multi-ethnic.
Right, and so, but the food content is really. It's a foodie town. People don't know it, but it's a foodie town. There's some really good places to eat.
And you go from the extremes, like you were talking about the Italian food. You can find great Chinese food. You can find great soul food and barbecue. It's everything there.
Careful, we're in Texas, so We're touchy with our.
I am
barbecue.
so sorry, but I'm St. Louis barbecue 100%.
You like the sauce? Is that what it is? Yeah, he's all about the sauce.
You raised off the sauce.
Man,
So living in Georgia and South Carolina, like in that South Carolina border, it's all about their sauce. So you come here, but it's still good here, but it's just so different.
Well, here's the thing: if you're looking for beef, it's hard to beat the beef around here, right? Now, if you're looking for pulled pork or pork ribs or whatever, you got
to go up north.
Yeah, Carolinas, all that stuff. I went to I was in Memphis one time and I was really stoked. I landed I'm like, hey, where are you taking me for some barbecue, right? Yes. But they're like, we've seen the barbecue you in Texas. We don't got anything like that, right? So they took me to go get hot chicken. I'm like, hot chicken, that was the thing. It was like, it's basically like fried chicken that's spicy, so
dipped in spice.
Yeah. Which, it was good. Don't get me wrong. But same thing with Kansas City barbecue, right? Like that's on a whole different, but I'm not big into sweet sauce. Right? So I want my barbecue. Like I want to taste the flavor of the depth of the meat. It's like steak. I don't put A1 on my steak. Around here you get smacked in the face. You put some stuff, however, there are places that that's how they get down. But to me, the concept is around here is if you got to put barbecue sauce on your meat, you're covering up the flavor of the meat, right? So, my kids love ketchup. They put ketchup on everything, and I'm just like, God bless you. I don't know how they do it, but macaroni and cheese, you name it, they put it. I'm like, oh.
So my way to adapt to that was I put my sauce on the side.
Okay.
So
sneaky.
Cut it, dip it, eat.
There you go. No, we don't judge.
No.
Yeah.
And I actually ate some steaks with some guys from California, and they were putting barbecue sauce on the steak.
Was that in California?
No, it was here in Texas.
Okay, yeah. So in California they have this stuff called tri-tip. Yeah, so it's kind of like brisket, but they call it tri-tip. To me, it's overcooked. It's not. They're like, oh, this is great, right? And I'm like. It's like beef jerky, I'm not trying to dog on them, but it's a tougher type of way of making the food. And again, the cigar industry has allowed me and blessed me with this ability to kind of go around to all these places around the United States and really, try different cuisines and foods so it's a bless. So that's the reason why I was like asking people like, well, where did you hang out at? The Hill's a good place. P. Stanley's downtown. So if you want to go, you want a cool bar scene like that, that's a great shop. Recently, Rivermen Cigars, it was called something else. I forget what it was called. Acorn? I forget what it's called, but that was on the east side of town. That was kind of an establishment for cigar shops. Now there's 66 Cigars. That's probably came after you left if you were here in 2010 because they just opened up. But Jay, who used to run the Hill, opened up 66 Cigars, right? So anyway, so that's kind of the one of the cool things about, I got to take Danny all around to a bunch of shops up in the Northeast that he may or may not have been to prior to. What'd you think of that experience?
It was great. It's just a whole different mindset. It's funny how different regions or different markets have different cigar smokers. The cigars are typically the same, in there, but the way they sell, how they interact with their customers, and all that was really interesting to see. We saw some that was, a real small shop, and it looked like kind of, but then you go and you look at their selection, and it's like, man, they got Opus in this cabinet, and they got all kinds of Padron in this cabinet, and they got a full bar, and it was packed, and I think that was like a Saturday night. But they were completely packed, almost like we were lucky to get chairs. And, but even like Sanj's, right, in New Jersey, it's just where I've been there before, but he has like 125 members in his shop that are as passionate about the cigar lounge as he is. So there's guys that do not work there, but they're cleaning ashtrays, they're moving stuff around, and then all of a sudden they're turned into a big domino tournament in the front, and there's guys, just watching, whatever in the back, and they get real. They almost feel like a part of ownership to their lounges. So it was a great trip, and even like Rocky's, the owner of Rocky's up in Syracuse actually has a separate cabin that is kind of a members only kind.
Yeah, it's a log cabin.
It's a log cabin.
Really?
Yeah. It's two floors. And they'll do events out there, and so they have a huge field to kind of park in, and those guys absolutely feel like they're like a little family.
It's that community again, as we were talking about, the neighborhood.
Yeah, so that was really cool experience.
But I think that here's the thing about going back to cigar lounges and kind of critiquing cigar lounges. You can always tell a good cigar shop based on when you walk in and the members go around and they shake everybody's hand.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yes,
and there's a lot of shops down here in Texas that don't do that. Which really, if you think about kind of the hospitality and the Southern charm and all this other stuff, that you don't necessarily kind of like, they all know each other, and really, the more diverse that the shop is, typically you'll find that there's a bigger camaraderie, right? And it's and what I mean by that is down here in Austin, there's a bunch of guys that go around. Like all the shops here kind of share the same guys, right? So you'll see them in this shop, that shop, whatever. It just depends on what kind of day they kind of bounce around. So wherever shop has like a Whiskey Wednesday, they all kind of bolt down, drink up all the whiskey, buy a couple cigars, and then they go to their home shop. And but that community, if you really kind of emphasize it, right, and it usually starts at the top, right? Based on the owner of the shop, the manager of the store, because with kind of as the internet and online sites and cigar delivery guys are kind of popping up and kind of doing this more and more, you almost don't, a cigar shop is a destination, right? We choose to go to a cigar shop. So one of the things that could you go online and buy a cigar cheaper? Yes, absolutely, right? You go on, you click. It's kind of the Amazon, mentality, right? However, when you go into a shop, you want to be with those people and you want to have that experience. And so if the shop owner encourages that kind of, mindset and culture, then, it's the different, it's the difference of having a few guys in your store versus being packed 24/7, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's kind of my 2 cents. I mean, now.
Yeah, and actually at our shop at the Leaf, when someone comes in, they shake everyone's hand, and when someone leaves, they go back and shake everyone's hand again.
And that's the mindset. And you'll have, just like you said, regular members, somebody walks in the door, they greet them as they're walking in the door. Because it's setting an atmosphere that makes the person want to come back. You want to be a part of this. You want to be here. It's you look at the end of your day, okay, I got to get to the Leaf. I got to get to the Leaf. And that's the mindset you want to set. And then you have great sticks in there that them coming. With that atmosphere, you have a home that's a home away from home.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a shop in Springfield, Missouri, and it's called Just for Him. You familiar with the shop?
I know Springfield, Missouri, but I've never been there.
It's been there for about 20 years. So on one side of the shop, it's got like hats and like I said, it's an old shop. And on the left hand side, there's a whole cigar store that when you walk in, you have to kind of go through the shop to turn left to go into the cigar side. But what's really kind of cool is they do like chili cook-offs. They do barbecue cook-offs. They like every other weekend they're doing something that is completely unique. That's bringing people in. And so when you go in there, there's 50, 60 people in there that are there on a religious basis, right? Like they're just part of it, right? And it's like this whole family. And like I said, man, I've been blessed to kind of go into a lot of shops, and there are oftentimes like as soon as you walk in, like you feel at home. But they're so far away that you're like, man, I wish that shop was like, was my local store, because I would that would be a shop that I would hang out with all the time because they make you feel so comfortable, right? So that's what we're trying to recreate, kind of bringing that back home to here. What we're trying to do is really, bring that kind of attitude and culture and mindset to RoMa. So when people come in, that they feel welcome and that they want to come back and they're engaged in our products, right? And that they feel like they're part of our community.
Well, you've really done a great job with the headquarters, because this is a really comfortable place where you feel like you can just hang out.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that early on when we didn't have something like this, we had to go to cigar shops, right? So, if you wanted to have this kind of conversation, because we couldn't smoke in our office that we had previously, we've kind of really outgrown that. And so, we really wanted to, when people think of Austin, oh, hey, there's a great cigar company there, along with Tito's and the F1 and, 6th Street and all this other stuff, right? Like we wanted the people to think about, there's a world-class cigar company like right here locally, right? So that's kind of why, when you go through here, there's a lot of detail kind of in the building and the build out, just like the cigars themselves, right? This is a direct representation of our company in this space.
Well, you knocked it out. It's great.
I didn't do any of it. So the only thing I did was add the coffee machine, the espresso machine. So it's actually being worked on.
It's not here.
No, the big one is it's being worked on. It's actually, I think the people from Switzerland probably have to come over and work on it just because of how complex it is. But anyway, so the guy had it in about 1 million pieces on the floor over there and got it all put back together, and it didn't work. So he messed it up really good.
Nice.
So, but when it is there, it looks really good. So and it makes good coffee. So, but yeah, what else you guys want to talk about?
Well, what do you guys have coming up this year that maybe we don't know about yet?
Yeah, so we're doing. So a couple of years ago, we did this cigar called the Whiskey Rebellion.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so that was originally through the dojo, and we did about 500 boxes sold in about 52 minutes. And Famous came back and said, "Would you guys consider making that, for us?" And so, anyway, so as far as a production schedule and kind of timing thing, they received it, they've sold through it, and it kind of got to the point to where it was like, okay, I think we had kind of met this kind of, they had a certain amount of sales that they were kind of comfortable with, and so it just kind of made sense for us to say, okay, well, we feel like the brand can do more. A couple of reasons. One, we didn't have a lot of products that were pre-predicate products that were on the market prior to the August 2016 kind of time frame. So it got to the point to where it's like, okay, we've got to, we need to maximize this. And so we kind of took that back. So that's going out nationally as of the trade show here at the end of June, first part of July. And so that's kind of exciting thing. We also have another product or project coming out called Baka, potentially, if we can get the Cameroon, but it's an African Cameroon cigar. And so you either love Cameroon or you don't, right? So it's a very unique flavor, but getting and sourcing, very good, clean African Cameroon is very difficult. So we're attempting to do this project. So we'll see how that goes. But earlier on this year, we did a saber-tooth run, which is the Aquitaine line with the Connecticut striping in it. We just released a cigar called Don Bosco, which is a Candela with broadleaf striping on it. That was available through Old Virginia Tobacco. We've done the Aquitaine Slobber Knocker. What else, Danny, have we done?
The Aquitaine Mastodon was new.
Yeah.
And the Craft 2019 for Riverside.
Yeah. We have those in there to kind of as display, but that's the multicolored Longsdale that we did. That was really, it's a beautiful cigar.
And Witchcraft coming.
Yeah, Witchcraft's coming July 13th. So.
Oh, nice. I was looking forward to that.
Yeah. This year is a little bit different because we didn't necessarily open them up nationally. We actually had to, because the availability of the types of tobacco that we used for those projects was a little bit harder to source this year, that we actually had to do single store releases for these projects. Now, Baca will be nationally if we can get that kind of done, and Whiskey Rebellion will be nationally as well. And so as far as projects, it's kind of the thing that we kind of have going as of right now. So hopefully we can get those locked up and into production this year, because that would, I think a lot of people are asking about those based on the social media, the weasels, the people that have seen us kind of work on the blends. So like I said, it's one of those, there's pros and cons, right? So when you're kind of at our size, everything that you kind of produce and you put out, now you've set this expectation that everything's going to be a home run, right? Everything that you produce is going to be knocking it out of the park. And so, one of the other ones we did earlier was the EC Goodness. I forgot about that one. That was in January. But anyway, so now the expectations and the pressure is really on, in a way. Now, on the flip side of that, we really don't produce anything that we don't like ourselves. And if we don't like ourselves, kind of being as in tune to the cigar market as we are, then there's no sense in making that cigar. Even though there may be a market for that cigar, but if we don't like it and we don't smoke it, we don't make it. It's just that easy, right? So that was kind of always our philosophy is that, we'll make what we like, and if we don't sell it, we'll smoke it ourselves, right? So So it's, like I said, so you're constantly competing with, the next project, right?
Oh, sure. And you're setting yourself up to compete basically with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and like I said, it's, however, because we've kind of set the standards that we have, and if we say it's golden, if you like what we put out, we got a good track record, then obviously we're going to put something out that we know is going to be thumbs up.
It's going to be thumbs up. Gotcha.
Well, awesome, man. Well, we appreciate your hospitality and your time. And, man, we've been looking forward to this so long. I mean, I know everyone probably tells you that they're huge RoMa fans. But, man, I've been a RoMa fan for like 2.5 years. And, in fact, whenever we didn't have RoMa Craft at the Leaf, I was always telling Bill, he was actually the owner then.
Yeah.
You met Bill.
Yeah.
And I was like, they have RoMa Craft in Big Spring. That's only an hour and a half away. It's smaller than Abilene, and we don't have RoMa Craft. And he picked up the phone and called, and they were like, yeah, what do you want?
Right. That's kind of that goes back to the people who engage with us.
Yes.
Right. And once they make that call and they realize, man, I'm missing the boat on something, and they pick up the phone and they engage with us, then it's like, I'll give you my shirt. I'm not going to go knock on your door and beg you to take my product. But it's kind of like dating somebody, right? Like once you kind of get the nod, hey, now we can date versus, kind of flirting with each other back and forth, right? Let's. So we one of the things that people kind of get kind of mixed up is oh, they're constantly on back order, or oh, they don't have product, or oh, they don't, I don't necessarily think that that's true. We make enough product, we make enough cigars, we do a little over 1 million cigars a year, and we only have 300 accounts in the United States, right? I think more importantly, kind of the way that we structure our company is we anticipate that you're going to continue to promote and help build our brand in your shop, right? And once you kind of, if you get to the point to where it's like, well, I've kind of moved on to something else, and you're no longer, engaging with me or my staff, it's like, okay, I take the hint. We'll stop calling you, right?
Right.
Because I've got other guys that are looking for the product, and so we'll reallocate that product for that store, and then we'll go to somebody else that, I don't like losing accounts, right? So, and what I mean by that is, you just kind of went through retirement through the police force, right? So, by the time that the academy takes you, trains you, gets you on the force, gets you kind of caught up,
there's an investment.
There's an investment in there, right? And then by the time you say, you know what, hey, I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna put my notice in, and I'm gonna go away. It's like, okay, well, by the time they get someone trained up to kind of take your place and to kind of move someone up the line, there's a 6 to 9 month gap into getting that person into that caught up, right? And that's from a business perspective, it's almost, hey, why don't I pay you a little bit more money and you stay on for another 1.5 years, right? Because I don't really want to be without you. I think you're an asset to my company, or you're an asset to the force. And so that's the way we look at it with these cigar shops. Now, I can't control, I can influence what you do, and I can influence the product, and I can influence the market and people asking for the cigars. But if the shop has money issues or doesn't like the fact that we do things a certain way, like, we actually charge you before we ship you the product, or, do these types of things that most cigar companies don't do, then they get a little frustrated.
Sure.
Or they could get frustrated, right? So if you put an order in with me, and it takes me 2 or 3 weeks to get it to you, it's because there's a demand for the product that I can't control. I mean, I can control it, but again, our product is at a fair price. There's a demand for it. There are people asking for it. And so I'll get it to you, but you just kind of have to wait. You have to give me a little patience, right? And I'll do everything else on my end to make sure that it sells and it does everything it's supposed to do. But some shops want to be able to call you and go, hey, I need 4 boxes today or tomorrow. Sometimes I can't meet that, right?
Right.
Now, there are other companies that do that. Sorry, I got a little tick in my throat. Yeah. So that's kind of one of some challenges that we recognize with some of the shops, right? But someone like Big Springs, they know that. They know that, hey, I could go 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks without having it. So I'll order 3 or 4 extra boxes, so I got a reserve. That's a great customer. And I'll do everything that I can to make sure that they don't run out. They're engaged with us, we're engaged with them, right? Same thing with the Leaf and these other guys, right? I think they do a great job. So, but, kind of on a lot of these bigger manufacturers, if you call them today, and they could have it there tomorrow. Like they have the ability because they mass produce things where we don't.
Right.
So, so you're trying to constantly kind of balance. Say, hey, it's going to be 4 weeks. You may need to buy 4 of these bottles of water because if you're going through a bottle a day, you want to have some backup, right? Well, I don't want to do backup. Why would I want to? I don't. Why? Some people don't want to have the capital invested in that product.
Right.
They look at it as being tied up. But if you're moving through the product at a very quick pace, then you need to make sure you have the backup to make sure that you don't run out in the event that I don't have it, right? So, but that's the challenge with any small company, right?
Well, I say absence makes the love grow fonder.
Yeah.
Because I know if we get short on RoMa Craft, whenever we see the shipment come in, and
Yeah.
I mean, we're the guys sitting around smoking,
yes.
and the UPS man comes in, and we're like, "Hey, has they got RoMa in it?"
Yeah, yeah. No, so one of the things that we're super transparent, right? So we talked about the economics. We talked about some of the ordering challenges that some shops have with us as a company. We've talked about everything that we do on our side to make sure that the product is repeatable and sustainable, that it smokes well, it's well aged before it goes out. And there are some shop owners that will call me and go, why would you say that on the air, or why would you tell people? I'll say, well, why would I not? Like, I'm proud of the way that we operate and we do business.
And you're not trying to hide stuff,
Right? That's transparency, right? So I'd rather give you all of the negatives of doing business with us ahead of time,
Up front,
right? Hey, this is it's just like if you were gonna marry some lady, and you come to find out she's got $60,000-$70,000 worth of credit card debt and some student loans and a repo and whatever else, right? And then you get married, and all of a sudden you just inherited all that baggage,
right?
So now that may or may not influence you. It may.
But it'd be nice to know up front.
You want to know up front, right? So you want to know, like, when I pull back the curtains, I want to know what the business is all about, right? So I'd rather you have all of the information up front, so that way, whenever you do take it on, I've set the expectation up front to say, hey, these are some of the challenges you're going to come, with us, but these are the things that we're going to do to overcome that.
Right.
And together we have a strategy of how to overcome that. And it's a partnership at that point.
It's a working relationship.
Right. It's a working relationship, right? So, and I think that again, I don't have everything figured out. I have a good handle and grasp on how business works, right? My partner, even better understanding. I mean, he worked for Dell for 13 years, was in the Navy. But together, along with the guys in the factory, Esteban Dizla, who runs our factory, like, we have like this 3-legged stool that, me kind of on the sell side and a really good understanding of how the retail environment business works. My business partner, who has a really good understanding of the overall business, from end to end works. And then, our tobacco guys in the factory, that Esteban, that goes out and makes sure that we, have the right tobacco, that we cured it properly, that we've aged it correctly, that we've done all these things to make sure that everything from end to end, is got good flow, right? So that's RoMa Craft altogether, right? Last year, I don't know, we're probably going over, but last year we came out and basically said that the San Andres that we were working with wasn't going to be good enough for us to use. So we put a letter out, the publication on Facebook, that we were not going to make the Neanderthal size probably for about 6-7 months. So because we have the people who smoke our cigars on a religious basis, those guys know if we were to cut a corner or do something a little different.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think that a lot of people don't give the consumers enough credit that they do know. Right.
Trust me, the consumers know. I consider myself a consumer.
Master smoker?
Yeah, I'm a master smoker. And there's some other brands that I've smoked through the years, and I could definitely see the corners being cut.
Right. La Traviata was a very good cigar whenever that came out, probably 2008, 2009. And over the course of 2 or 3 years, it slowly started to change and evolve into a much different cigar that was being sold. And so knowing that the consumers are astute enough to know the difference, we knew that when we came out with the cigar, that it had to be better than it was the first go around. Like what we, to the point to where it was like, okay, now we can finally go, right? Because, a lot of retailers would tell you, hey, the moment that you don't have this type of product, they're going to go find something else. And that's true. Guys want to smoke a cigar, right? So if that cigar is not in stock, it's like, okay, well, hopefully they go to Aquitaine or they go to Intemperance, they go to Whiskey Rebellion, they go to something else that we make. But if not, if they go to, My Father, Pepin, Tatuaje, Illusion, whoever, when my product comes back in and they see it and they line it up, they better absolutely like flip out. You know what I mean? Like they moonwalk. You know what I mean? Like I want them to, And so that was kind of again, that's the standard that we have set, and that is that's what we are competing against ourselves, because we knew that was going to be a challenge, right? We didn't miss a beat. You know what I'm saying? And so now this year, we have a little bit of Cro-Magnon coming down the shipment that the girls are processing in the back. You saw them kind of getting ready for that. So tomorrow we'll be all hands on deck whenever the shipment comes in tomorrow.
That's what Danny was telling us. Yeah. He was like the calm before the storm back there in the warehouse.
Right. Yeah. And so, but this is the last bit of the Cro-Magnon that we'll probably see until January.
Wow.
Right. Just because the broadleaf that came in for this year's production run was not any good, so we sent it back.
Well, here's the good thing. This show won't air for 2 weeks.
Nice.
So me and Bryant's going to be buying up Cro-Magnon.
That's it. So, but again, on the flip side of that, right, broadleaf is hard for us to get. It's hard for a lot of people to get this year, right? Like there's none in SLE. So, the good news is that, once kind of everyone kind of sells through all their broadleaf, everybody's kind of in the same boat. So that's on the positive side, and so, but we also know when we reintroduce that in January, it better be on point. You know what I mean? So
yeah, because everybody's going to be sitting on the edge of their seat waiting for it.
Right. And so, but again, whenever we set our price points at the price points that we do, guys are willing to go back to it because they know they're getting what they're getting.
Oh, absolutely.
Smoking, right? So,
I mean, and we've done a lot of talking about the value price point that you guys have. And if you just want a solid stick every time at that price point, you can't go wrong. Well, hey, man, I know we've taken up a lot of your time. We're going to let you get out of here, but we want to say thank you so much for being on the show. We've been looking forward to this, and we look forward to the Whiskey Rebellion coming out at a local shop.
No, that's great. I really appreciate you guys coming down and making the time for this and having us on. I mean, like I said, it means the world. It still does, and I think that, it's like I'm still like it's a blessing, right? And the fact that your listeners, the people that you guys smoke with, would even RoMa Craft's even part of the conversation. It still blows me away. Like I should be used to it by now, but it's still one of those things. It's a very humbling experience, and so it means the world. You guys made it down here. You spent some time. You got a chance to kind of see what we built. And you guys are using the words to kind of broadcast that out to your guys that are following you guys. And so I wish you guys all the best of luck. And anything we can ever do to help you guys out, please let me know.
Hey, man, we really appreciate it. Hey guys, so we're back in the studio. We're going to take a break from the interview. The rest of the interview will be on part 2, so I hope you'll check that out. We loved the time we were at the RoMa Craft headquarters. So anyway, we're going to finish out this show, and then you can check out RoMa 2 for the rest of the interview and the next show. Anyway, so let's talk about what we're smoking now, Bryant. I'm smoking a RoMa Craft Aquitaine. It is RoMa Thursday, so I'm always smoking RoMas on Thursdays. And anyway, if you haven't smoked a Cro-Magnon Aquitaine, man, it is just like one of the perfect cigars. It's probably my favorite RoMa Craft cigar. It's definitely a medium to full, great draw, some spice in there, some leather, some earth. It has the trifecta flavor profile for me. And I would say on the nicotine level, it's probably a medium. So you can smoke it morning, noon, night. That's what I do. And so anyway, tell us about what you're smoking, Big Bryant.
Hey, man, I'm smoking an Alpha Dog, the Diffuser.
Yeah, and that's the one that had that awesome ash.
Yes, and I'm getting another one right now.
I can see that.
Yeah.
It's a 6x60.
Yes,
and
sir.
nice Maduro, good smoke.
Great smoke.
I tell you what else I like about that cigar. It just bellows out smoke.
Oh, most definitely. Bellows out smoke. Lasting to 3/3. It bellows out smoke. It's a great stick, man. It's a good after work, calm down cigar.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that cigar is a good hour smoke.
Oh.
Maybe more.
Yes. Now 45 minutes.
Now it's funny. It's funny that you go from that little Corona size to that big stick.
Hey, I'm all over the levels.
That's good, man. You're getting somewhere.
Come on.
So anyway, let's do the cleanup time for this episode.
Yes, sir.
What we're going to do is going to be different this week, and it's going to be this way from now on until we make a change, which you know me, I'm all over the place. I make changes every week. But for right now, this is an indefinite partnership that we have with the Luxury Cigar Club of the month. So if you haven't checked them out, definitely go check them out. I'm a member. I've been a member now for about 4 months, and every month is like Christmas. You open a box and you never know what they're going to send you. And so far, I think every cigar they've sent me, I have not had at our local shop. And so I've always said this, it's like Christmas every month, except you're not getting a crappy pair of socks.
And that's what got me to the point where I joined, and I'm waiting on my first box.
Nice. Well, I can't wait to see. It should be here any day.
Yes, sir.
I can't wait to see what's in it. That's how excited I get about it. I wish it was like a box of the week. You know what I mean? But anyway, we've partnered up with the Luxury Cigar Club, and man, we can't be any more excited than what we are. So here's the way we're going to do our new contest. And you don't have to do anything except register. So even if you've registered before, we got a whole new setup. And so you got to go to the website, click on the registration page, and it asks you for all your information. You put it in there, you hit submit, and now you're registered from now on. So you don't have to do anything week to week. Once you're registered, you're done. And I know if you've registered before, you got to go back and do it again because we have a new system up. We are evolving and hopefully getting better. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands, if you haven't registered within the last 4 days, and this is the 30th or the 31st? This is the 30th. So if you haven't registered within the last 2 or 3 days, you need to go back and register on the website so that you will be entered in the drawing every week to receive a free box from the Luxury Cigar Club. And I mean, dude, that is a great prize.
Yes, it is. I used to sit back here and be jealous.
Yeah.
Sit there looking at what you were getting, and I could not partake in that.
Yeah, right. So, in fact, we ran into Junior at the shop.
Yes, we did.
He's a member of the Luxury Cigar Club, too, and he was the same way. He was like, I can't wait. In fact, he said, my box arrived today, and I'm in Abilene, so he can't wait to get home to check out what came in his box. So, if my box comes tomorrow, I'm not going to tell him what came in the box just so he can be excited when he gets home.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, we are so honored and so proud to be in a partnership with the Luxury Cigar Club guys. Man, they're so down to earth, and they are a part of the community that we love.
Yes, sir.
So we just want to say thank you to those guys.
Thank you.
And so what you do is go by our website, register, and you're done. That's all you got to do. We'll do a weekly drawing every week, and then you will find out via email if you're the winner or not. And, of course, we'll announce it on the show as well. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what's coming up the next 2 weeks. We've got David Blanco coming up next weekend with Blanco Cigars. You know, he's this awesome, badass blender. He does the blends for Hiram and Solomon. He does them for Warfighters. Of course, he does them for his own cigar line, the Blanco line. And you know I love the Liga exclusive line. And I'll tell you what, I was a huge fan of the Liga Maduro. Dude, I smoked the Connecticut version this week.
Oh, yeah.
Blew me out of the water.
Yeah.
In fact, it made me rethink, maybe I'm turning into a Connecticut fan because it was that good. So hats off to that guy and the work he's doing. And man, you guys, I just can't tell you, got to tune in and listen to Blanco. Down to earth. He was in the Army. He's still in the Army.
Yes.
And but the journey that he has been through to create a cigar business is an amazing story. So make sure you tune in next week for that. And then the following week, I feel honored because the president of Cigar Rights of America is going to be on the show. And you guys know that that's my pet peeve. If you're not a member, you got to sign up. So we're going to talk with him and get some inside information about what's going on with the politicians and cigars and the FDA and all that stuff. So that'll be another great episode that you guys want to turn into as well. So anyway, man, I guess that's it for now. We're going to wrap it up. And if you want to hear RoMa 2, it's already released, so just click on to the next episode and check it out. So I hope you light up another cigar. Stay smoking, my friends.
Keep smoking.